Welcome to ENside Politics, our weekly podcast on 4 or 5 things you need to know about San Antonio politics. I'm Greg Jefferson, politics editor of the San Antonio Express News. I'm joined today by City Hall reporter Megan Rodriguez.
Hello.
Welcome. And our special guest, District 2 Councilman Jalen McKee-Rodriguez. Welcome. You had a very eventful Friday. You presided over the censure vote on Mayor Gina Ortiz Jones. The resolution to censure Jones passed 8-1. So I wanted to start out kind of big picture and just tell us how City Council got to that point. And I know you might start on February 5th, the mayor's tirade against Councilwoman Sukkor in a private setting just off City Council chambers, had to do with an agreement aimed at keeping the Bonham Exchange open. But maybe the censure vote started even before that in other actions of the mayor. You tell me.
I would say definitely. Man, that's a rough one to start off with. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having Always me. Nice to have you.
You know, I'll say I think it's no secret there's been tension on council, and there's been sometimes this feeling that it's city council versus the mayor. And I think when you have an instance where there's a clear violation of our code of conduct and administrative directives, I think many of us tried to isolate the event that happened that Thursday from anything prior. Of course, there was a memo filed by council members that said, hey, this is not just an isolated event. This is built on past occurrences and repeated behavior. And so there was I think definitely a balance where we had to, have to ask city staff and the attorneys, hey, if this were to happen at the city with city staff, a member of the executive leadership team, would you consider these things? What would be separate? And I think the answer was yes. And even so, I think there were...
Hold on, yes to what?
Yes to, we would consider that as a pattern. Like we would consider the instances that you're talking about, we would consider it as a part of the broader disciplinary action.
Right. So not just the shouting match on February 5th, but incidents that preceded it, that the mayor misbehaved in some way.
Yes, but I would say even consideration of anything prior was very minimal. What happened was fairly egregious in nature, and it was a clear violation, and so that was the...
And so what happened was the mayor, and this is based on Councilwoman Corr's complaint and the mayor's public statements. So Mayor Jones raised her voice, shouted, and dropped at least one F-bomb, could be a whole series of F-bombs from what we've heard, up to 6. It's a lot of F-bombs. But we don't really know anything else for certain, and we certainly don't know anything about any of the preceding incidents. Were those, whatever came before, was that part of the investigation that you're aware of? I mean, did the New Braunfels attorney the city hired to conduct this investigation, did she look into other encounters with the mayor?
No, it was isolated, and I think it took into account a part of the investigation, I think, was the memo that was received that indicated that council members felt that this was a part of a pattern of behavior. Right. So it wasn't that the attorney was going to relitigate any past actions or incidences. Incidents.
Incident time.
Yeah. So it was, and what I'll, I guess in terms of past behavior, I mean, you guys have reported. I think it's interesting. I feel like there was so much coverage of conflict between city council and the mayor, especially in the early months. And it was hard to escape that coverage. And so it was interesting to me that it's, council, please list all these things. What happened?
So you think it's like a matter of public record then? So it sounds like what you're saying is council doesn't really need to say anything about these past incidents because we've already reported on them. Is that what you're saying?
To an extent. And I think at Sook's press conference, we were asked again, I think by Molly actually, and I shared some of the things that had been publicly reported on.
Yes. And I think one of the items that you had even mentioned in that press conference and that folks have brought up a few times is kind of this instance of potential like retaliation in which the Mayor Jones had basically kept a bunch of the more senior council members who had kind of been pushing back against some of her policy directives at the very beginning of her time, basically kept them off of key government committee assignments, which is very atypical. You usually see more senior council members. I know that was one of the ones that you had mentioned. But I guess when we say that, we don't really know what these past instances were, there were, of course, several items like that were reported. But I think when you hear, okay, the mayor berated somebody in a back room and like there were past instances of unprofessional conduct, I think we all wonder, were there past instances like this? Was there anything that rose to this level?
Why didn't y'all ask it like that?
Because
I'll say this, if there was something to that extent, you would have... probably would have known about it already. So no, nothing to that extent.
So just to go back to, let's go into your own personal reason for voting yes for the censure resolution. How much of it had to do with reprimanding the mayor for bad behavior against Councilwoman Kaur, and how much of it had to do with changing the way Mayor Jones interacts with city council to kind of force her hand in becoming more collaborative?
I wouldn't say that was a part of any of my reasoning. This was actually a really, really challenging week for me, just as someone who, I've grown a friendship with Gina, and I can see her perspective in how quickly were people rushing to make her somebody's villain. And how quickly what does she think when she's hearing that council members who are openly antagonistic towards her are considering runs for mayor? And how do you not take every action and every transgression through that lens? And if you don't understand someone's decision-making logically, and you know this in the background, it's okay, so you're acting this way for this ulterior motive. And so I think having that perspective and then knowing that you have council members who, get increased media attention because they're involved in conflict with the mayor and they're celebrating this in their community, you're incentivized to continue to have these back and forths. And so when you're not acting logical and when I feel like, I'm approaching council with questions and ideas and thoughts that are necessary and really simple and logical, and you're responding in a way that I don't understand, how can I not think that it's because of this as well? And so I want to give some amount of grace in that she's had to navigate this, and she's been villainized for asking questions about Project Marvel and about trying to move elections. And I think starting there, I don't want to participate in the public shaming with the mayor when this is the backdrop of it all. And I was aware when I voted on the censure, and I think I voted against, not the censure, voted against the code of conduct because it could be used as a tool for political gain. And I remember saying, hey, if I triple dog dare somebody to use this as a political tool against me. And I think I probably would have handled it the same way that the mayor did. And you saw how many people came out in support of her, whether they were fans naturally or if it was something just because council has said it again. But as well, because it's there and because it is a standard and there was a very clear violation, you have to, what do we look like then if we set our own standard and then vote against it?
So you're giving her grace because Councilwoman Marina Aldrete-Gavito is, she's widely believed to be preparing to run for mayor in 3.5 years. And Mark White, because maybe he's got the same objective in mind. Maybe he's got some other political objective in mind.
Is that the perspective you would have if you were
if I were the mayor? Maybe.
And then how do you react, right? And so I'll also say I have not had bad interactions with there was one incident and we spoke about it. And
what was the incident?
We're good. It was silly. It was
if it was silly, then go ahead and say it.
It was a disagreement. She rolled her eyes while I was talking, and I said, "When you roll your eyes,
does she not do that a lot? Like during council meetings, does she not roll her eyes?
And that's one of the things that people feel. And so for me,
I think that was one of the ones you listed at the press conference, also.
And so we spoke about it, and she, I don't know that she was always aware of it, but we spoke. I told her, "Hey, I don't like this. This sends this message to me." She said, "I appreciate that. My bad. I'm not going to do that anymore." Did she keep her word? She hasn't. She hasn't rolled her eyes at me. And that's the thing is people, when there's conflict, and I wish that this was the case more often, but when there's conflict, I do wish that people, went to the other person's office and said, "Hey, this is how one-on-one." And that's how I handle conflict. Almost every time is if I feel a kind of way and I know it's gonna bother me or it's gonna seep into a future interaction, I'm gonna go talk to this person and say, "Hey, this upset me," or "I don't understand why you did this. This is bothering me." And then we have a conversation and it's good. And I think it's so simple. It's so simple.
Well, I mean, kind of to that point, though, I think some people wonder, why did this rise to the level of a censure? I guess if you're talking about the desire and need to, go and talk amongst yourself, why wasn't that appropriate here in this instance between the mayor and Councilwoman Kaur, as somebody who supported the censure?
I mentioned, almost every time, right? When there's a conflict, I have my approach. There comes a time when that approach will not be effective or fruitful, and when it will not be embraced by both parties. And so there was a breakdown that I think will hopefully be resolved, but at that moment could not be.
And then I also wanted to talk more about the actual kind of investigation and its findings.
Okay, y'all got one more question on this.
Oh, no.
We have a lot of things going on.
No, we have many more questions.
Oh my gosh. But with the investigation and its findings, I know that it has been said by the city attorney's office, by you all, the council at the press conference, that these findings are not going to be released. And they weren't really discussed in the actual censure open public discussion. And I guess I want to know more about why that is. I think for folks, outsiders looking in are saying, I don't really understand what the real problem was because I don't really understand the details that happened. And I guess, can you talk some about why this is remaining as secretive as it is?
So there were only, aside from the mayor and Councilmember Kaur, there were only 3 other people in the room. And based on the findings and based on the witness accounts and based off of what we saw, there's not a way to release that information without being kind of clear about who said what. It would be obvious about who said what. And the reason that investigations like this are able to produce findings is because of that trust that witnesses have, that what they're saying is going to be confidential and that it's not going to get back to either the complainant or the accused. And if we were to release findings that very clearly identify who said what, then what does that do for any future investigation that we have to do? And how do we ensure that witnesses are going to have trust? So I get the desire. People want to know. People, at the same time that everyone's like, oh, I wish council would just move on from this. They shouldn't be censuring the mayor with very limited information. And why are they still talking about this? It's not meant to be used for public spectacle, and that's what it would be used for.
I mean, I guess, though, a couple of in Councilwoman Kaur's complaint, she mentions a couple of the folks who were in the room. She talks about one of her staffers, or one of Jones's staffers, Pat Wallace. She talks about, I believe it was John Paterick, as another one, who's an assistant city manager. I guess, so that only leaves one person who I guess was unnamed for some reason in the original complaint, which begs the question of why that was. But also, I mean, we know most of the folks involved.
I think they have, but the third person is eluding me. Yeah. Hey.
Oh,
I mean, my fifth.
Oh, I had not realized that. I had not realized.
I guess my point, though, is I don't really understand this argument. If, like, we know the majority of the players here, this argument of well, we're trying to protect people and what they said. We know a lot of the pieces, but not the ones that I think would make it evident to the public why this was necessary. So I guess that's
I really don't know how to make it much clearer while saying what I need to say.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me jump in and say, okay, so City Council took a beating on social media, and far be it for me to say that social media trolls and good, honest commentators are a really good, healthy sampling of public opinion. But it's what we have, right? And the sense last week was that City Council was taking an action that was, one, distracting council from bigger issues like an ICE facility going up on the east side. And there was no, when it comes to like, why is council doing this? There's silence on your end. We're not hearing from you. What really is behind the censure vote? And I think that's a problem. City council had a censure vote, and I think a lot of voters just didn't really understand why. I think that's the crux of the issue.
And I think what I would convey is there was an action that I am privy to, that members of council are privy to, that was egregious. If it was, it would be easy to say, oh, the public doesn't want this. Let's hands off, back down. That we can't do that.
Right. Okay. So what's the way forward for City Council? Have you talked with the mayor? I mean, you presided over this meeting. Pretty consequential meeting. Have you talked with her since then?
I have not spoken to the mayor since then, but it's been a weekend. It was my birthday weekend, and so I was
Happy belated birthday.
Wow, thank you. 31. There were really two goals this week for me and for many. One was that we were going to get this done as quickly as possible, and we were going to move on, and we were going to turn a page. The second was that there were going to be no leaks, and so. And so we accomplished one of those things. It did happen quickly. There's no need for any follow-up action. I know that was something that had been discussed, and it was a week. It was a week, I tell you, because you want to, I think, any sort of disciplinary action in my lens, and I viewed it like this as a teacher, and I view it in our criminal justice system, and I view it in instances like this, should be restorative in nature. It shouldn't be punitive. Right. And so I think there's going to need to be more one-on-one discussions, and I think the mayor is extending olive branches right now. And my hope is that we move forward stronger than we've been. I know there were some council members I helped facilitate a conversation that, hey, let's move on and turn a new page. And so I'm ready for that.
Is she extending olive branches to all of council or some?
I feel as though she's extended olive branches quickly to those that she knows how. And I think there's still the challenge of, what do I do for the rest? But I think there's definitely a clear effort there. So I don't doubt that we're all going to move on. And
right.
When you say olive branches, are you talking about like reaching out to like make apologies for past incidents? Or are you talking about just talking about wanting more conversations moving forward, like meetings on the books that can help move forward? What is an olive branch in this case?
I would say any of those things are olive branches.
I didn't know which ones were being utilized.
I'm going to try to, I don't want to speak for the mayor or for any other council members. There's things that I'm seeing that I feel like, hey, the mayor's making an effort. And so I'll leave it at that. But I think that speaks to where we're going. I think we're going to be a lot stronger as a body, hopefully.
You got a pretty strong political sense. I mean, you got reelected, or you got elected and then reelected, no problem. You're serving your last 4-year term now. Given kind of the at least again, in social media land. City Council did take a beating last week, and I don't think there were none of the 13 speakers at Council on Friday. I don't believe anybody really spoke in favor of censuring the mayor. They were all opposed to it. So it does look like City Council lost the public perception battle. But the mayor, how did she come out of this? Like, did she wind up in a stronger position than she was before?
I think I said this.
Like I mean by that she maybe looked picked on by City Council or targeted.
Oh, definitely. And I think I might have said that a couple times, is that, the mayor is winning this publicly. Like, this is, the action that we take, if we have to do what's right.
Right.
And I'm not going to, there were comments I got of, we're going to remember this when it's time to vote for you again. And one, I'm not up for reelection. Second, the threat of losing anyone's vote is never going to move or shake me. For me, it's, I have to do what is right at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think the mayor, if I'm thinking as a communications professional, the mayor, I think, of two major avenues that she could have taken. One that was, repairing relationships and saying, I'm going to move past this. I'm not going to do, I'm going to accept whatever consequences, not going to do too much. And sort of, I think was more relationship oriented. And I think the other opportunity was to preserve her image and project all that she needed to. And I think I saw so many press releases and press conferences and policy proposals and things. And so she was still moving in so many other directions that she walks out of this fairly unscathed. And that's fine. That's not what this was all about for me. I never wanted to participate in public shaming. If council is being publicly shamed, so be it.
And going into this, just a few days before the council took a vote on the censure, Mayor Jones had originally been saying, like, I don't want to, accept some of the consequences that the council has laid out. She was originally saying she wasn't going to step down from her position on the governance committee like the council had asked for. She was saying that the training that had been recommended should be something that we all do rather than just me, and I'll do it if everyone else does it, essentially. And then says, well, I've already issued my apology to Councilwoman Kaur, so that has been met. But other than that, kind of some reluctance. And then come the day of the vote, she ends up accepting all of the terms and is moving forward. Did you or other council members kind of urge her to do that? Like, I guess I'm curious what the reason and motivation behind her switch there was when it was only a couple days in between.
I'll say that was also a really challenging point because, like I mentioned, we wanted this to be very smooth. And I think had I not been mayor pro tem, I would have gotten to sit in my regular seat and gotten to make my comments. But instead, I'm at the head seat, facilitating this discussion about the censure of my friend, essentially. And we can't, like I mentioned, we wanted to prevent leaks, which prevents maybe council members from talking to anybody on their staff, including their chiefs, who might be helping navigate conversations so that we don't violate the Texas Open Meetings Act. We can't talk to very many of ourselves, because you can't, a discussion cannot happen between 6 people directly or indirectly. And in response to the mayor saying, hey, I'm not going to accept these terms, there was definitely some escalation. And I had a conversation with the mayor. I don't know that anybody else did. I won't reveal the details of that, but I am happy that she went the direction that she did. And I think that definitely allowed for Friday to happen fairly smoothly.
Did you or any other council members that you're aware of say to her, you don't have the votes? You can say you won't step down as chair of the governance committee, but if council votes on it, we've got the votes and you don't.
I don't think that was a conversation that needed to be had.
Okay. So it can be left unsaid.
I mean, she's very, Gina's very smart. She's very intelligent.
That's probably, it was probably maybe not lost on her. Yeah. Now, personally, what do you want to happen next? Like, what's the next city council member or a city council meeting like? Just kind of tell us what the atmosphere is in your kind of idyllic council meeting after this, the first one after the censure vote.
The first thing I hope that there is not. Mm-hmm. I don't enjoy tense environments. Mm-hmm. And my hope is that it's not going to be that. I've been pleasantly surprised since even the February 5th incident. Council meetings have been fine. Nothing's been... I feel like folk are somewhat good at internalizing and compartmentalizing. And my hope is that we're all at the point where we understand, hey, this has been rough. This has been a rough 8 or so months for all of us. Mm-hmm. And it's not good for us as people, but it's also not good for our constituents in the community that we serve. And so we have to move on from this. We have to let anything of personality go. And we have to be here to collaborate and to work together and to see the best in each other and to rebuild some sense of trust.
Yeah. Now, you're in a really interesting position because you took parental leave for about 2 months, early in your
August
this term. Yeah, this term. Mm-hmm. So that was a pretty consequential time for the mayor and her relationship with the rest of city council. There was a lot of consternation between the two over the Spurs Arena, over council. I mean, Commissioner's Court putting the venue tax, which would partially pay for a new Spurs Arena, on the November ballot. All kinds of stuff. Describe for me how council's relationship changed in that time you were gone. So when you got back, what surprised you?
So now that I'm so far removed from that time period, mm-hmm. it's a little dramatized in my it's a little bit more dramatic in my head, but yeah, I definitely remember sitting down and feeling like a tension. You could tell that there was
your neck hurt after a while. So your neck hurt after a while.
It was yes, a little bit. It felt like there was an underlying and unresolved conflict that I think is attributed to a lot of what you just mentioned, a lot of what I had mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. But that there was still, I remember feeling like, okay, I'm back. I can help fix this. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't ever actually put that on myself. These are grown-ups. But I remember I don't know. I feel like there were new blocks of council members there were different relationships when I got back than there were when I had left. And so that was new. So what I always look forward to at the beginning of a new term is that the relationship building, that July, August, September, the budget. Mm-hmm. When you're spending so much time at City Hall, we don't really spend that much time. We're usually at our field offices and whatnot during the regular season, but during budget season, it's like meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting at City Hall. Mm-hmm. And so we'll stop by each other's offices and whatnot. And I didn't know where the new council members were going to fall into place. Mm-hmm. And I think seeing how that took shape was most interesting. So I probably won't name blocks of people, but you've seen relationships forming.
Okay.
I'm curious, just going back to one piece of the investigation, there was kind of some concerns expressed during the council meeting by a former council member, Mario Bravo, who had, before the current code of conduct had really taken shape, who was also under investigation by the same third-party attorney for berating a former councilwoman, Anna Sandoval, ultimately found to have violated the city directives. And he, along with also Councilwoman Misty Spears, who I think surprised a lot of folks by not voting to censure, kind of expressed concerns about the process that was laid out. This idea that, maybe this was not the best way to go about this investigation. I think Councilwoman Spears even mentioned a concern about lack of testimony given in the process. I want to hear from you, though, if you're able to enlighten us on some of the process And tell us if you think that it was sufficient.
So a complaint is filed. The investigator is hired. They begin interviews that happen fairly quickly. They interviewed all the people in the room. I think for some of them, they had extremely long conversations. I think some of them, they had maybe 1 or 2 conversations for follow-up, because the key goal there is fact-finding. And so they want to get a summary of, this is this person's account, this is this person's account, these are the witness accounts, and they corroborate this story, or neither. And so during that time, we're all instructed not to talk to anybody about this, not to talk to each other about it, to just leave it alone, don't try to influence anything. And then at some point after that process has played its course, we're presented with the findings, and we get this thick packet of a detailed investigation. And it tells us, how do we get here? What were the findings? Who were the people involved? What did they say? And the reason why we know it would be easy for everybody to tell who was who is because it wasn't told to us whose account was which, but we could tell easily based off of what was said. We then the investigator doesn't necessarily say these are the recommended next steps that you should take. We then are looking at past censures. We're looking at past actions that we've taken, who has been censured, who's gotten voted no confidence, who's gotten called to resign, who's taken, what's that thing called? When they for sobering, rehab, was that what Perry did?
Yeah, he did.
Voluntary rehab. So we see all these things in context. We see what the violations that happen here, what's most comparable here, and how do we be as consistent as possible. And so that was that. The meeting that we had that executive session where we got to go over the findings, we got to meet with the investigator, Misty Spears was not there. And so I don't know how that shaped her perspective. I wish she
was one no vote.
She was told everything a little bit later, and it was a different setting.
Right. Yeah. And like Megan said, her concern was with transparency, the whole process of the investigation.
And I genuinely, there was how I got to the point of, we have to protect the witnesses, and we need to make sure that in the future witnesses are safe and comfortable to come forward. I asked multiple times, is there a way that we can release these, waive our attorney-client privilege, whatever can we do that? Can we create a summary of some sort that says, hey,
did you do that, or
I pitched a number of options.
And who said no? Was it Andy, the city attorney?
It was recommended based off, and it was early on. It was within one conversation. I had asked for these things, and it was the same thing. There's not a way to do that with.
So then, did you suggest that, knowing that this was going to be a problem for city council, that you're calling a censure?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
I think.
So I mean, you understand the appearance of it,
especially because there's one account that is being shared publicly by the mayor, and then there's the account that has been a series of accounts that has been presented to us.
Yeah.
And so I think, and they're not, I don't know how to, I'm gonna leave that be, but it's definitely, if I
but
could,
it was a problem to you.
Absolutely.
That you were taking a public vote on censuring the mayor, and there was a way to do it. There was not nearly enough information to the public.
If there was a way to do it and think about it this way, in any HR type situation, what would you what would you do? And there's a little bit of a conflict, because previously when we had the DWIs and whatnot, it was, what is council going to do about this? And it's obviously there's a whole criminal justice system that is going to be handling it, but they want to know, what is city council going to do about one of their own?
Yeah.
And so or following this HR process, but the discipline happens publicly.
Right.
In no other situation does that happen.
Right.
Except for maybe when someone's like, oh, when someone's...
But your employer are the voters. So that's the difference. Now,
Maybe we need a commission. Maybe we need a commission of citizens who serves on a commission and can review these complaints. That way we can be totally independent.
I think there is a council consideration request
I would
in the works. So like it's gotten started right
Mind
here.
you, nobody wants to be participating in this process.
Right.
I don't want to be here censuring people my parents' age and my grandparents' age. I remember being with Mario Bravo, especially because he is both my parents' age. That was so. I should be looking up to you in this moment, and right now I am very disappointed. And then next thing you know, 3 minutes later, it's Councilman Perry. He's my grandparents' age. Right. We do not want to be. We do not want to be policing one another's behavior. There is a process that's been created. We don't want to keep fleshing out that process because we don't want to use it.
Yeah.
But now that it exists, we have to.
Now, you've kind of walked through every censure vote you've had, and it's a lot, right? I mean, five.
Well, I was not a part of it.
Okay, that's 4. That's right. So you weren't. But given, well, I guess 2 questions. One is you had a very scant history of any censure votes on city council until 2020, 2021, and then suddenly you've got 5, right? Why is that?
A series of unfortunate events,
right?
Because
actually, since 3 of them were DWI cases, maybe
I think people did keep. I think there's a part of me that feels like some of the. What I hear from folk who have been on council before me, who had been council aides long before I was a council aide or before I got elected, is that council members and the mayor kind of kept their cards to their chest. There wasn't the same. There's a different relationship on council now, and especially with Mario Bravo being the first one, there was a relationship that always made me uncomfortable. That Anna and Mario had at one point been together. They were exes now. I didn't like that. And I felt it was going to lead to something, and it did, unfortunately. And at that point, when something's made public, somebody makes a complaint, hey, I don't feel safe. This has happened to me, and I need something to happen to protect me. Right. How do you ignore that?
Right. Now, the second part of that question is just given the sheer number of censure votes we've had in the last 5 or 6 years, does it mean anything to the public anymore? Has it lost its punch from overuse, maybe?
I definitely think it depends on the context. I think, there was maybe one person who came out to speak in support of previous council members who had been censured. This one had, I think, the most people. Obviously, it's the mayor. She's a very, she has ride or dies. And so I think, in this situation, it was really hard to explain publicly. For a lot of the other ones, it was, hey, there's video. If there was video, we would have released it.
Right.
There was no video. If because there was a lack of information available publicly that could be released, that I think made this one a little bit more challenging. Other ones I don't think have felt like this publicly.
Yeah.
The thing that kind of kicked all of this off was a kind of debate over the Bonham Exchange, the 45-year-old downtown gay nightclub, very important historically in San Antonio. You were actually one of the folks who really pushed along with Councilwoman Kaur and Councilwoman Castillo to try to get them more time to install fire sprinklers without having to reduce their occupancy, which is what the fire department had wanted, was for them to basically cut their occupancy in half since they didn't have fire sprinklers in. They missed a 2023 deadline for that. They were saying they needed more time, that they needed, to keep their occupancy at where it was at to be able to afford to even keep the doors open. We really never got to see that argument even play out because the mayor was a big part of, helping to kind of urge the Bonham Exchange to sign an agreement to just reduce their occupancy and kind of meet the requests of the fire department before the city council ever took a vote on whether or not to extend by a year the deadline essentially for them. were the votes even there? I mean, was part of the reason that the mayor was able to convince the Bonham Exchange to sign this was because the city council just was not going to go forward with this extension?
No, the votes were there.
The votes were there to get an extension? Okay.
Based on my understanding, I would not count votes.
And I guess kind of to that point then, the mayor got more involved in this issue than she usually does or that you usually see a mayor get involved in something like this. And even the fact that council members were getting involved in this is kind of something that is more of an administrative task among the city staff, not something that you see council members bringing to the forefront. I guess, can you tell me from your conversations with the mayor, who you've described as a friend, what her motivation was for trying to get involved here? She's offered to fundraise $550,000 to get these sprinklers in. I think a lot of people wonder, well, where's my money as a business owner that other businesses had to get sprinklers in too? So I guess what was her reason here for getting so tied up in this?
I'll paint a picture of, and I think what this whole disagreement was, and I want to express that the complaint itself is not about the policy disagreement. That may have been the underlying context that led us to that point, but it was beyond that. It could have been anything. But what made, I think, the mayor and many of us so passionate, I'll speak to, if I were thinking about this as the mayor, she has been very consistent on this. There's a few things that we're not going to grant leeway on, and one of those is going to be issues of public safety. And if the fire chief is saying that this is unsafe and it's going to do this, then that's the lens I'm viewing it at, and kind of thinking about the worst case scenario that could possibly happen, as unlikely as that may be. And so earlier that day, I think, for example, Jack Finger had come to the dais and said, "You guys are about to put this homosexual on the ethics commission, and homosexuals are unethical." And
another issue.
And it's even us being on the dais, and even people who we appoint, no one is protected from that ugliness. And here we are as a council, and in the mayor's mind, right? Imagine if you're thinking of the worst case scenario that could happen, we're setting up, members of the LGBTQ community to burn up in a building because we didn't listen to the fire chief. And the disagreement that I think Sook and I had with that is that that's one of the least likely scenarios to happen. What happens if Bonham Exchange has to reduce their capacity and then they don't make money and they're not able to ever install the sprinklers is they close down. The stewards of a historic structure, and historic for many reasons, right? They're no longer maintaining that facility. It ends up contributing to blight. It ends up becoming a place where unsheltered folks seek refuge. It gets cold. Let's say it's several months from now, it's cold. Someone sets a fire. Then the building really combusts into flames. And that's what we've seen in a number of other structures throughout the city, historic in nature as well, is that when you allow them to go unoccupied and unused, then that presents the most imminent safety threat. And so there was a disagreement about what was the most likely situation, but we all felt very passionate about, one, protecting Bonham and protecting our community. And so that was ultimately why I think each of us felt so passionate about it, even though we disagreed.
Did the mayor ever express, that this was potentially her trying to, avoid a very public loss if she knew the council was potentially going to vote for this extension and she was against it, or even that she was trying to avoid looking like she was kind of opposing a gay nightclub after, this came on the heels of her not really fighting very hard to keep the rainbow crosswalks in the Pride District. And I think that frustrated a lot of people.
What I know to be true about the mayor is that she is very strong in her convictions. And I think she's comfortable losing votes. I think she's comfortable with that. In this situation, I think it was more than that. It wasn't about, another loss to council or, disappointing the LGBTQ community. I do think it was about doing what she felt was right.
Does that alarm you at all, what you just said, that she's comfortable losing votes? Should any mayor be comfortable being on the losing side of any vote?
Absolutely. You don't ever pose a question that you're not okay with either response.
Right. But I mean, if you keep losing, doesn't that mean you're not, like, you just don't have council with you? Like you're not leading, like you're not talking with council members one-on-one about, what's good for the city, what your vision for the city is, and how that might intersect with their vision. I mean, that's...
I wouldn't say that's true. And I think about the mayor can't control who everybody else puts on council and can't determine whether or not they have everybody has their own vision for the city,
right?
And what they believe to be right. And everybody is strong. It's this iteration, everyone is really strong in their convictions. People are not moving too much on issues.
Yeah.
And so and I think with some of the bigger conversation we're having, Project Marvel, what was the compromise other than asking for more information and being told what was the compromise?
Yeah.
And so if you have to if you're going to be a mayor and you're going to lose votes, do it as a fighter. And so I think she's taking that approach. That would be my approach. And I respect it.
But apart from moving the city election calendar from May to November, and clearly, on odd number of years, like
which is a big deal, and it's something that's been.
It is. I mean, will it be a big boon for voter turnout? I mean, I think the fact that it's still in an odd number of years, as opposed to presidential election years and midterm election years, I mean, those would be the big ones, I think. But that aside, like, on what other issue has she actually, like, has she set a goal for council and gotten the votes together to achieve it?
So I think about these first several months for the mayor, and I think about what her approach has been. And I think she's has been in a stage of getting all the information that she possibly can, all the data, so that her arguments can't be, if you say, hey, this is what the data says, and this is going to be the solution, sure, council, vote against that. And so I think there's a few things I'm thinking about, right? Is one, she created these committees, including the Educational Opportunities Committee, that is convening stakeholders and is really looking to address, because we know that the biggest issue for a lot of people right now is education. And what can council do to support schools, to support childcare, to support literacy, all of these things that historically we do not have. We don't have jurisdiction or really power, and it takes some creativity. And so putting people in a room together and saying, hey, what is going to be the action plan as a result of this? And what is going to be the next thing? We've seen that yield results like pre-K for SA. We've seen, was another big one. Sorry, I said a sentence that threw me off.
We'll go back to pre-K for SA. So what precisely has she done?
Before I forget, the other big thing was, I think also in the context of everything going on with the federal government, the shutdowns that we've seen, the loss of grants, the threats that we've gotten to lose funding, she's saying, hey, we can't be caught flat-footed. Like, we can't be caught unprepared for a disaster like this that we see coming. And so convening stakeholders who are some of our biggest partners who are addressing a number of the issues that we need, I think that's conversations that wouldn't be happening if not for her leadership. And so I think that, it's one thing to say, oh, I developed this program and it lasted however long I was mayor. It's different when you're trying to prevent disasters from happening. Right.
So to go back to what you were saying about data, right?
Yes.
Like marshaling her arguments. So is what you're saying that if the mayor, chews up all the data and comes to the right conclusion, it's a pristine position, she doesn't really need to talk to anybody else.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
And
because that's what it sounds like.
No, and I'm also not saying she's not.
The logic should be obvious, and council should just fall in line with that.
No,
and to think she's not.
To think she's not having conversations with people would be ridiculous. She has. She does have relationships that I don't think people are always aware of. Okay. And so that's. It's easy to look at the conflict that happens publicly, but there's also the conversations that we have in her office, that we have in executive session, that one off in the hallway.
Yeah.
It's not like it seems.
Okay. Let's end on an issue that I believe is important to you, free bus ridership.
Yes.
So I wrote about this very early on. Councilwoman Terry Castillo, and Rick Galvan had a council consideration request asking VIA to look into a test program for free bus ridership, and could have been on certain routes, could have been, it was very loose. What happened to that CCR? Because it doesn't look like you got the support you needed to move it along.
Y'all are so funny. So the CCR was leaked, right? It was not filed. At any point in time, I have 15 or so CCRs that I've thought up ideas. It was up at 3 a.m. and had a thought, and I was like, let's go ahead and let's explore this.
Yeah. And
everything is about timing. It's about who is where, who is friendly to the idea, who does this matter to, and who is, opposed and against it.
Right.
And so I had originally drafted the CCR back in 2024, floated it to colleagues, didn't have much bite. And I do believe with this council, there will be a time for it. Instead, what we've seen is, this sort of anti-homeless sentiment where it's, homeless people are on the bus and they're causing all these problems. And if you make it free, there's going to be homeless people on the bus. And what you just told me is that homeless people are on the bus and you don't feel safe. And, you wish that could be addressed. It's not something that is going to be, what we've seen actually is that in cities that implement fare free transit, that conflicts go down. The number of instances that transit police have to come and deal with the situation goes down because most of the conflicts are happening about the fare. And so I'm okay with accepting right now that that is the position that VIA has taken, and that's the position that some of my colleagues have taken.
I mean, VIA's argument is that if you like the green and silver lines, no free bus fare because that'll jeopardize federal funding.
And I've always VIA leadership is interesting to me in that. And there's no way that a $100, $200 million investment, $300 million investment is at risk because of $18 million if we find another way to fund the fare. If you replace the fare with something with another revenue stream, then you're fine. And that's what it comes down to. What I will convey is this. I've been told no on policy issues a number of times since I've been elected. And we've seen some of those big no's, right? The Pet Deposit Assistance Program, Insulin Cost Share Program, the Office of Integrated Community Safety. We see them eventually have their day on the sun. And I don't, I have full confidence that day will come for zero fare. But right now I think I'm going to pivot into the underlying issue of VIA and some of the operators' concerns about safety and about access to services for homeless folk on the bus. And so I'd like to address that next. That'll be my first course of action.
So the mayor sent a memo to VIA leadership, I believe, asking them to consider a free bus test or pilot program. Did she talk with you, Councilwoman Castillo or Rick Galvan, before doing that? Like, did she come to you and say, I like your idea, and now I'm going to take it to VIA and see if we can make this happen?
So what happened was we had VIA at a B session, and the idea of a telecom tax, another tax for VIA, came up. And so some of us expressed what would it take for us to support something like that. And so zero fare was mentioned a number of times. And I think the mayor said, hey, based on what I'm hearing from my colleagues here, I would request that you, VIA, come back to us with, hey, what would it take to get to this point?
Right.
And then so she followed up with the written thing. So
and VIA trustees said, nope, not happening.
That's gonna. Yes, they did.
Is there a way around that? Or
there's always a way around it.
Are you or is anybody else on council looking into a way around that?
I think, like what I just said is I can accept that is their position right now.
Yeah.
And I think what we need to do is address the underlying issue.
Last question goes back to the mayor. So if the mayor weren't facing a censure vote when VIA trustees had their meeting, and more, in a bigger sense, if the mayor had council on her side, generally speaking, you kind of, if she were the kind of mayor who, if she's taking something to a vote, it's a given that there's a council majority that's going to support it. If she were that kind of mayor, would VIA trustees have said no as quickly and easily as they did last week?
What I would say is that, I think folk were organized to say no. And sometimes when you put folk in positions on commissions and on boards of trustees and whatnot, and they're not used to an onslaught of public pressure, sometimes that's the direction they go. I think there were a few people who applied to be board members who said, hey, zero fare is one of the things that I want to see. And that's why I championed them during the appointment process. Yeah. So for it to be a unanimous no vote says to me there was a wavering of values. And so we have to address that.
All right. You want to end this on a happy note or a positive note? You have a good joke?
Yes. So I'll say something. I filed maybe a week or so ago a CCR calling for Have you ever been on a train? Have you not on a train? Have you ever been in your car approaching an intersection and then a train is popping up? And sometimes it moves along, it goes. Sometimes it just stops there. Yeah. And don't you think, man, I wish that there was a notification system that would let me know that this was about to happen.
Yes. But what do you mean, like on your cell phone?
On your cell phone, yes. And filed a CCR asking
is that technology available?
Yes, it is. Yes. And so Houston actually did, theirs is a little different because I think theirs is a website, but there's ways to connect. So with sensor technology and driver technology, you can let Waze, Google Maps, and let these wayfinding apps know, hey, there's, the train is about to get here. And then that can send a notification to drivers on their phone or in their maps. And so that's my goal, is hopefully in the next year or so we can have that rolled out. But I'm very excited.
That would be so nice. I would love to never get stuck behind a train.
Some of my colleagues do not have trains going through their districts, and so they didn't understand how big of an issue this was.
He's like, have you never driven? Like, have you never gotten stuck?
But District 2 is the most train impacted, and San Antonio overall is one of the most train impacted cities in the country. And so things like this that should be intuitive, I'm really excited that hopefully we can move on. It should be at governance fairly soon.
Okay, good. Good way to end this. Councilman McKee-Rodriguez, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And spending all of this time talking about something you did not want to talk about. But we appreciate it. And thank you for joining us. We will be back actually Wednesday for a...
we didn't talk about the election.
For the primary election roundup. We're not getting into that right now, but we will see you Wednesday, and thank you very much.